Daniel Brooks had learned long ago that pride could not be deposited into a bank account. But it could keep a man standing when everything else tried to knock him down. 3 years earlier, he had been living what many people would call an ordinary, happy life. He worked as a supervisor for a small construction company, his wife Emma taught music at the local elementary school, and every Friday evening they took their daughter Lily to the beach with homemade sandwiches and a cheap kite. They didn't have much money, but they laughed often, planned for the future, and believed better days would always come. Then one ordinary Tuesday morning changed everything. Emma collapsed in their kitchen without warning. A brain aneurysm. By the time Daniel reached the hospital, the doctors had done everything they could. She never woke up. The funeral passed like a blur. Friends promised to stay in touch. Relatives offered help that slowly disappeared as months went by. Soon, it was just Daniel and 6-year-old Lily trying to figure out how to live in a house that suddenly felt far too quiet. As if losing Emma wasn't enough, Lily began struggling to hear conversations. At first Daniel thought she was distracted or grieving, but doctors soon discovered a serious hearing condition that required expensive treatment and surgery. Insurance covered only part of the cost. The rest became Daniel's responsibility. He refused to give up. He sold his fishing boat, then his motorcycle, then the old watch Emma had given him on their wedding day. He took every honest job he could find, construction during the day, grocery deliveries after sunset, furniture moving on weekends, and late-night repair work whenever someone called. Sleep became a luxury he could no longer afford. Even so, he never complained. Every evening, no matter how tired he was, he made dinner for Lily, helped her with homework, read her bedtime stories, and reminded her that tomorrow would be better. That Friday afternoon, after spending hours at the Children's Hospital for another hearing evaluation, Daniel carried Lily on his back because she had fallen asleep in the waiting room. Before heading home, he accepted one last delivery assignment through the logistics company. $40. Most drivers ignored jobs that small. Daniel couldn't. $40 meant 3 days of Lily's medication. $40 meant gas for the following week. $40 meant one less thing to worry about. The destination was Harborview Bistro, the city's most luxurious restaurant. Luxury cars filled the parking lot, while elegantly dressed guests walked through polished glass doors beneath sparkling chandeliers. The contrast between Daniel's faded work boots and the restaurant's marble entrance couldn't have been greater. At the rear loading dock waited a custom-built wine cabinet worth thousands of dollars. It had to be delivered carefully through narrow hallways and installed without the slightest scratch. Daniel adjusted his gloves and smiled at the warehouse employee. "I'll take good care of it." Piece by piece, inch by inch, he maneuvered the heavy cabinet through tight corners. Sweat rolled down his face, and the muscles in his back burned with every step. More than once, employees walked past without offering to hold a door. No one thanked him. No one even asked if he needed water. After nearly half an hour of careful work, the cabinet stood perfectly in place inside the restaurant's elegant wine display. The owner, Victor Langston, admired it briefly and nodded with satisfaction. "Looks good." Daniel handed him the electronic delivery confirmation. "I just need your signature, sir." Victor scribbled his name without looking up from his phone. Daniel smiled politely despite his exhaustion. "Thank you." He hesitated for only a second before speaking again. "The delivery company asked me to collect the $40 payment here." Victor slowly lowered his phone, looked Daniel up and down, and let out a short laugh. "For $40? Daniel nodded calmly. "Yes, sir." Samuel Whitmore looked at Victor for several long seconds before quietly closing the folder. "The deal is over." Victor stared in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious. Our numbers are excellent. Every report proves we're profitable." Samuel nodded. "I've read every report. Our expansion strategy is solid. It is. Then why throw away a $12 million investment? Samuel leaned forward. Because numbers tell me how a business performs. Character tells me whether it deserves to grow. The room fell silent. You refused to pay a hard-working father $40 that he had honestly earned. You humiliated him in front of your staff, your customers, and his young daughter. If that's how you treat someone who can't benefit you, then I already know how you'll treat employees, suppliers, and customers when times get difficult. Victor tried to defend himself. It was just a misunderstanding. Samuel shook his head. No. A misunderstanding is forgetting an invoice. This was a choice. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and headed toward the door. Victor hurried after him. Please, Mr. Whitmore. Give me another chance. Samuel stopped without turning around. I already gave you one yesterday. You didn't know I was watching. Then he walked away. Within hours, Whitmore Capital officially withdrew from the partnership. The news spread quickly through the business community. Investors who had been waiting for Samuel's decision immediately became cautious. Banks delayed financing approvals. Suppliers demanded stricter payment terms. Planned restaurant openings were cancelled one after another. By the end of the week, Harborview Bistro's expansion had completely collapsed. Employees quietly discussed what had happened. Eventually, security footage from the restaurant leaked online. Millions of people watched the heartbreaking video of Daniel politely asking for his $40 while carrying his tired little daughter. There were no angry words. No threats. Only a father asking to be paid for honest work. The public response was overwhelming. Customers canceled reservations. Food bloggers criticized the restaurant's leadership. Local news stations covered the story, praising Daniel's dignity and questioning Victor's behavior. Meanwhile, Daniel knew nothing about any of it. He simply continued working. One morning, he received a phone call asking if he could meet Samuel Whitmore at a small neighborhood cafe. Confused but curious, Daniel agreed. When they met, Samuel thanked him for coming and slid a sealed envelope across the table. Inside was the missing $40. Beneath it was another document. It was a full-time job offer with the Whitmore Foundation as operations manager for its community housing projects. The salary was nearly double what Daniel had ever earned, and the benefits included complete medical coverage for Lily's hearing treatment. Daniel looked at the offer, unable to speak. I don't understand, he finally whispered. Samuel smiled. I've spent my life investing in businesses. The best investment I ever make is in good people. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I was only asking for what I'd earned. And that's exactly why you deserve far more. Months passed. Lily successfully completed her treatment and gradually regained much of her hearing. For the first time in years, Daniel no longer had to work 3 jobs just to survive. He attended Lily's school performances, helped coach her soccer team, and finally had evenings free to enjoy life again. As for Victor Langston, Harborview Bistro never recovered its reputation. The restaurant eventually closed, serving as a painful reminder that arrogance can destroy what success builds. One sunny afternoon, Lily looked up at her father and asked, Daddy, do you think that man regrets not giving you $40? Daniel smiled gently. I hope he regrets something much bigger. What's that? Forgetting that every person deserves respect. Lily nodded thoughtfully and slipped her small hand into his. As they walked home together, Daniel realized that the $40 had never really been the point. The real lesson was that kindness costs almost nothing, but refusing to show it can cost everything. The end.